How's it going, my squids? Today I thought I would talk about Spacelords and how it's kind of underrated. This isn't really a review or anything on that level. I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of a shout out and shine some light on this game that's actually pretty cool. Spacelords is pretty much this like science fiction-y space game where it's kind of got this dungeon crawly aspect. So think of it this way: the easiest way I can describe this is Mass Effect and Dungeons, Dragon Age Inquisition as multiplayer, basically molded into one. It's got the same like kind of survival science fiction-y aspect like Mass Effect, and then it's got this dungeon crawly multiplayer, something on the lines of Dragon Age Inquisition, where you have to fight bosses towards the end. There's kind of a lot of enemies and you're working towards something. It doesn't really work like Mass Effect's multiplayer in terms of like wave survival and stuff like that. It's more of a dungeon crawler, and I'm using that word carefully, but that's what it resembles more or less. Now this game is 100% free to play. You don't need to pay any money, and that's probably what it does really well, is that there is absolutely nothing that requires you to spend any real money to get ahead in the game for a free to play game, right? That is actually really amazing. I will say that this game is struggling to a certain degree, and I will talk about that a little bit later in the video, but surprisingly enough, I was expecting a lot, and I mean a lot, of weird microtransactions, and I was expecting like, you know, oh well, buy your way to the top. And though I will say that there are two characters that you can purchase from the get-go, they are really good, but they are definitely not necessary to actually win the game. So let's start talking about some of the things that I like about Spacelords. The one, it's got a variety of characters, and that's really interesting because with a game that's, I would, like I said, say is kind of struggling and it's been out for a while, I was expecting a lot less characters. I was expecting a lot of just kind of not so much diversity. It's kind of interesting the level of diversity that they have. There's problems with that, which again I will talk about when I get to the cons and stuff, but more or less the fact that there's quite a few characters in the game for a free to play, that's pretty interesting. Along with all the characters, you get colorful voice acting, and you also get kind of decent cutscenes and whatnot before each mission. It's quite interesting to see these characters be very animated, and the voice acting is not trash. It's not, I would even say it's above average for a free to play game. It's actually super good. I have zero, and I mean literal zero, complaints about the voice acting. In a free-to-play game, believe me, voice acting is god. Like, sometimes it can be so trash, it can be so bad, but I would say whoever did a lot of these voices, they did a very good job in hiring whoever, and they did very good. I want to give a quick shout out to my boy Constantine. That dude, I love that voice actor. Whoever that is, that guy's doing it up. Just get that man a job. That dude is killing it. Aside from voice acting, again, talking about the cutscenes, they're pretty interesting. It's kind of got this weird, like, shaky, dynamic camera angles thing that they're going for here. It kind of adds a level of dramaticness to each of the cutscenes and whatnot. Sometimes it can be a little hard on the eyes because the camera is just shaking to the point of just you wondering if the guy has a seizure, but it's not terrible. It's actually pretty good, and the fact that it's so cinematic and it's kind of good to a degree, as long as you don't watch it all the time, because like I said, if you play this game for more than an hour and you're watching shaky hands McGee over here just do the camera work, your eyes are probably gonna beg you to please look away. But more or less, it looks pretty good. The first time you're playing it, you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting the cutscenes to be that good. And another thing to note is that, again, in free games, you don't really get amazing cutscenes, and that's, again, something that it goes a little above average from what you're expecting from a free-to-play game. So I'm very impressed with that as well. So let's talk about the story mode, which is, there is not really a story mode per se. It's more like there's lore stories between the characters. You can kind of like purchase little background stories, and by purchase I mean in-game purchase. It's nothing expensive. If you care to actually know the background of the character that you main or want to play, whatever, you can go down into the universe area, and then you can actually purchase little backstories and snippets of what exactly you want to know. Not what you want to know, but what is given to the character. So that's cool. You're not going to get a whole lot of story here in terms of like, oh, where did this person come from, or what does that mean? In a lot of these cutscenes, in terms of like story mode, you're not going to get a lot of context. It's more or less dialogue between mercenaries, raiders, whatever, and they're kind of just having this colorful conversation, having arguments back and forths and blah blah blah. It's just your standard merc talk, you know what I'm saying? Like just a bunch of mercs coming together just to talk and kind of figure out how to do the mission in the best way, and they bump heads. That's pretty much the dialogue summed up in a just right then and there. So in terms of a story mode, like I said, no context whatsoever, but it's still good. It's just if you want background information on a character, you're gonna have to go down, read the character's information, and if you want to pursue it any further, you can purchase it. I don't really care to do that, but for those of you that care about lore and stuff like that, it's a good option, and it's nice that it's actually, we'll say, basically free, because it doesn't cost a whole lot to actually get the background information, so it is what it is. Now let's talk about some of the customization here. So we've got a few different options here. It looks to me that there's only about like 3 to 4 weapons per character. Some have more or anything, but the average is about 3 to 4. And there's, I don't really know why they did that. You can upgrade your weapons and whatnot, but I'm not entirely sure why you would limit the weapons to about 3 to 4. It just seems kind of like a waste. Again, it's free to play, so I'm not going to complain too much, but a little bit more of a variety would have been nice. It would have gone a long way with me, but for the most part, I'm not going to complain too much and say that it needs to get fixed when the game, if the game gets more popular, then okay, we can start looking at it and demanding more of a change of content. But for right now and for what the game is, 4 to 5 weapons, 3 to 4, whatever, it works. It's just kind of weird to see that sort of thing. So each individual character has their own weapon of choice. Abigail, what's her name? Alicia, she's got like an automatic shotgun. Merrick, he's got a sniper rifle. Lycus Dion has a like pistol shotgun that he starts out with, and then Constantine has a minigun. And who's the other one? Who is the other one? Hold on, I got it up right here. Oh no, actually that's all of them. Never mind, that's all of them. Anyway, so aside from that, they get their own personal weapons and whatnot. As you progress through the game, you'll get these things called blueprints, and then you can actually either upgrade the current weapon that you're using or unlock different variants of the weapon. So for example, I have Merrick up right here, and his starter is like this bolt action sniper rifle that does a good bit of damage early on. Later on, I got the 4th one, which is called the Ferox Impetus, and it's actually a semi-automatic sniper rifle. And that's pretty good because in a lot of this game is in closed quarters, so you don't really get too much of a chance to use a sniper rifle very effectively. Merrick does have a unique ability, and so do all these other characters, where he can actually jump onto like the ceiling or walls, and he can project himself onto certain objects, whatever, and he can actually shoot from the shadows, and then he can teleport back to his previous position, which really helps out with the sniper rifle dynamic. But because the maps are so enclosed, it would be good to have a secondary, because you find yourself more often than not just meleeing people to death. Which brings me to my next point, is that there is actually kind of a fighting style aspect to this. You have your melee and melee moves, and then you also have a grappling move. The grappling move is an insta-kill. No matter what happens, it's an insta-kill. The only way to counter a grapple is if you can poke through the grapple. So the grapple will charge up, and then once they do the charge animation, you can actually punch them out of it and then get a full combo punish off of it. They can dodge away, but if you catch the dodge, the only way to beat a dodge is to grapple. So the cycle goes: if you grapple, you have to poke punch, and then if they dodge, you have to grapple. So what beats the punch? You have to dodge. So it's more of a guessing game. It's 50-50 for all, realistically. So it's all just a guessing game and figuring out who's gonna do what. 9 times out of 10, people are never gonna really grapple, because it's just kind of like obvious that punching is superior. But that's, you know, talking about multiplayer here in a second, about how the PvP works in this game. but for more or less reasons, the actual combat itself is really good and intuitive. I was never really thinking that it was going to work, but it's actually super satisfying to get these executes off and these grapples and really cool combos. Each character has really cool individual like combos and stuff like that. I wouldn't say combos, they have a combo that they do, but it's unique to their own, and that's really cool. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is kind of the bads here. So one of the worst parts about this game is that it's kind of dead and the player base is really bad, which is part of the reason why I'm making this video, is because I think it needs a little bit of love. For the most part, the queue times are about 5 to 10 minutes on like I'd say that's about on average. On a bad day, that shit can go from like 10 to 20 minutes. I mean, it can be pretty bad at times, you know, when kids are not in school or when people are not working, whatever. During the nighttime hours between like about 7 to about 12 o'clock, you'll get your queue times pretty quickly, but probably during the morning and day, it's pretty slow, more or less. During the day, it's not as bad actually, but it can be pretty slow in the mornings and really late at night. Next problem that I have is the level of unlocking stuff. It would seem to me that they went with the pattern here where you can unlock one character at level 3, one at level 8, and then one at 16, and then after that it's pretty much like 23 to like 30, 40, and then it just, you know, the unlock rate here is pretty high. I would much prefer instead of a leveling unlock system, it would be a chance thing. I know this is guaranteed and whatnot, but I feel like the rewards in this game are not necessarily very good. Like you kind of just get gold and sometimes a blueprint, and that's great and everything, but if you added characters in the mix, it would kind of have this Mass Effect vibe where you unlock characters through like completing missions and doing new things and whatnot, instead of just having them given to you at whatever. I know some people probably prefer just guaranteed unlocks, but me, I would like to have a bit more of a rewarding experience versus just waiting 48 levels just to get the character that I want, and that sucks because I just want to play Rock Mayera and he's level 48, so that kind of sucks. And honestly, those are the really only big gripes I have with the game. There's kind of a little bit more nitty picky stuff, and I just don't really care to go into it. I don't really think there's that big of a deal with this game. If you play it for what it is, and what it is a free-to-play game that's basically kind of a reboot clone of Mass Effect and Dragon Age Inquisition. If you play it with that going in that mindset, if you like those games at all, you're gonna enjoy this game 100%. The missions are very good. Some of the combat is very intuitive. The boss fights are probably going to be one of the most interesting things to you, because you're going to be like, wow, this is a free-to-play game and I'm doing this kind of boss fight. They really thought about this, so I highly recommend you give it a shot. I know Assassin's Creed Odyssey just came out and Red Dead Redemption is coming out too, but this is a free-to-play game, and if you need time to kill and you're already kind of level 50 in Assassin's Creed Odyssey and you're looking for something to do, Spacelords is definitely a good option. Give it a try. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to do anything ridiculous. It's literally 100% free to play, and it's super good. I highly recommend it. That's it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.